Yes, Miss Havisham. But let me introduce the topic by pointing out that in London it's not the custom to put the knife in the mouth, for fear of accidents.
All cultures have their own unique customs for etiquette and protocol. They usually seem strange from the outside, but normal on the inside. But from the 1830s to 1901, the culture of Great Britain and the British Empire came under the influence of Victorianism, named after Victoria, the reigning queen at the time. The Victorian era is infamous for exhausting expectations of piety and mannerly behavior.
That it's not usually considered necessary to fill the mouth to its utmost capacity.
I was so interested.
You'll be glad that nobody cares if you follow these 5 Victorian etiquette rules today. Unless they do. In which case, you have our sympathies. Are you a lady? Well, hope you like wearing lots of constricting and cumbersome gear because, yes, it's totally expected of you. You probably know the Victorian era was a high time for corsets.
It may give you the shape you desire. Tighter, please, Miss Morton, tighter.
But you might not realize how far this tight lace obsession went. The word maternity corset refers to a real thing that real pregnant ladies put on their torsos. Also popular during the Victorian era were crinolines, which were stiff, domed cages designed to hold women's skirts out in a wide radius away from their legs. You can probably imagine the loss of agility you experience when wearing a 6-foot wide steel bird cage under your dress. In other words, you can't fight crime in a crinoline. And of course, there were plenty of rules about what to wear and when, such as which kind of dress you wore to each different occasion and how long you had to wear black after the death of a family member. Fashion police like these made you want to call a lawyer.
Mr. Bingley! Mr. Bingley! Oh, my goodness! Everybody behave naturally. And whatever you do, do not appear overbearing.
Quick! Think of all your friends. Do you know exactly how many levels below the Queen and the Archbishop of Canterbury each one resides in terms of social rank? No! Such ill grace would never fly in Victorian England. See, in Victorian times, you couldn't just walk right up and talk to somebody. You had to be introduced first. And who got introduced to whom depended on the order of precedence, a system of social ranking. So, you'd introduce a lower-ranking baron to a higher-ranking duke, and not the other way around, you fool. And you can't do this flawlessly unless you know the rank of everybody in your social circle. And frankly, that just sounds exhausting. Constantly comparing your acquaintances like they're poker hands just to see what beats what. And then there's the issue of how to address everybody. I forgot, is Jimmy the right honorable or the most noble? So, imagine you're an unmarried lady out for a stroll in 19th century London. Well, first of all, you'd better not be alone. That's right, you need an escort. But what happens if you see a man you recognize? Well, first of all, he is not allowed to talk to you unless you make a gesture of recognition first, which, okay, I can kind of see the appeal of that. You don't have to pretend to be doing something on your phone to avoid making eye contact, etc. But let's say you really want to stop and talk to this guy. Well, you can't. Or at least you shouldn't. If you want to talk to him, instead of stopping, you can offer him your hand, which he can take, but only after lifting his hat, using the hand farthest away from you. Then once he takes your hand, he has to walk along with you, but even then you can't just gab away. According to Castle's Household Guide, strict reticence of speech and conduct must be observed in public. And that means no loud talking or animated discussions. And if you see a gentleman you'd like to speak to, but he's smoking a cigar, tough luck, sister. It's amazingly rude for a man to smoke in the presence of a woman. So if you acknowledge him, he'll have to put out his cigar. And for all you know, it might have been a really expensive cigar, and now you've just ruined his morning. Nice work, Myrtle.
I cannot be your wife.
Do you ever have that problem where you want to date the neighbor's daughter, but you don't know if she's technically on the market yet, or if her parents still consider her a child?
Will you marry me?
Are you mocking me?
No? Good, because that's amazingly creepy. Fortunately, the Victorians had a formalized system for avoiding this problem. Presentation at court. If you were a respectable family who wanted to announce that your son or daughter was ready for courtship, you could do this at a specialized event. Young men could be introduced at events called levees, which were held several times a year. Young ladies could be introduced at presentation events held at St. James's Palace, and these events did not skimp on the pomp and protocol either. Men had to wear buckled shoes and swords. Ladies had to stick feathers in their hair and drag 3-yard trains behind their dresses. But once the kids are ready to start dating, that's when the etiquette fangs really sink in.
I imagine that since your change of fortune, you have naturally changed your companions.
Oh, yes, naturally.
Lots of parents get weirdly strict and judgmental when their kids start dating. Thanks a lot, Mom and Dad! But Victorian England really took it to another level. First of all, etiquette manuals of the time advised young lovers that technically you're supposed to look for partners only within your own social class, because we all know how awkward it is when you're a baroness and you're trying to chat up a nice viscount and his mother is just right there on the fainting couch looking at you with eyes that say, trash! Now, even if you can't get a nice courtship going, you're gonna have to deal with the elephant in the room, which is, let's face it, people marry for money and social status.
You think you're better than me, not?
Victorian England operated under the law of primogeniture, which meant that when old Moneybags passed away, his entire estate went to the oldest son. So it was just kind of expected that eligible ladies would seek oldest sons. Meanwhile, young noblemen with troubled assets would try to court rich heiresses, sometimes from a lower social rank, say the daughter of a highly successful crinoline merchant. On top of all these awkward expectations, the courtship itself had more chaperones than a middle school dance, and young couples could never expect to be left in privacy, basically, until they were married. Oh, and here's another one. Pop quiz. What do wild turkeys, mule deer, and marriageable young ladies in Victorian England have in common? They all have a season for hunting. Young men looking for ladies to court would search at social events during the season, which lasted from January through June. If a lady didn't find a husband after 3 seasons, everybody knew it was spinsterhood for Agnes. What's one etiquette custom you hate being expected to follow? Or what's one that you wish people would pay more attention to? And does anyone have a suitable match for Agnes? Let us know in the comments, and if you like this video, would you kindly click on yonder button and then subscribe? And if you want to learn more about Victorian customs, check out 10 ridiculous Victorian etiquette rules at howstuffworks.com. Courtship etiquette. Somebody say courtship etiquette.